Is that reason for the second door, front door,
Correct.
is claustrophobia?
Correct. It doesn't, our house does not look aesthetically pleasing from the curb.
I see. And do you have that second front door?
Yes,
Yes.
it now is a place to host Google interns because we live near Google, so we get to have
Google.
and other students can live.
Can you tell us, is there any other
course,
way
she's
this
a
has
bitch.
affected your life?
She's a cheating, lying whore.
The primary impact was in the initial 4 years after the event. I struggled academically. I struggled very much in Chapel Hill and in college. When I was 17 and went off to college, I had a very hard
She went to
time,
Chapel Hill.
more so than others.
I know Chapel Hill.
Forming new friendships and especially friendships with boys. And I had academic problems.
One of the things that they wanted to talk about the psychological therapy that she was undergoing, and this is the stuff about
and
the
it
two
became
doors
very
and so forth.
clear how
She
deeply
did not.
you felt about
at
this
that,
and the need that you
the
wanted to remain
Question is whether or not she
confidential.
mentioned Brett
Can you
Kavanaugh's
talk a
name.
little bit?
I would like for somebody to ask that about the notes of the psychiatrist, because the psychiatrist said that she said there were 4 boys, according to her notes. Now she says there's 2. She said she was in her late teens, according to the psychiatrist's notes. Now she says she was 15. So there's some contradictions there. But the key thing is whether or not she said this was Brett Kavanaugh, because we've had another individual come forward and give 2 interviews, a written statement, and a phone interview to the Senate saying, I'm the guy that she's talking about in 1982. Let's go out to questioning.
Popular, and that it was a sure vote. I was calculating daily the risk benefit for me of coming forward and wondering whether I would just be jumping in front of a train that was headed to where it was headed anyway, and that I would just be personally annihilated.
How did you decide to come forward?
You'll be a
Ultimately,
hero for life
because
for doing this.
reporters were sitting outside of my home and trying to talk to my dog through the window to calm the dog down. And a reporter appeared in my graduate classroom, and I mistook her for a student. And she came up to ask me a question, and I thought that she was a student, and it turned out that she was a reporter. So at that point, I felt like enough was enough. People were calling my colleagues at Stanford and leaving messages on their voicemails and on their emails saying that they knew my name. Clearly, people knew my address because they were out in front of my house.
All right, we've got to take a commercial break. We're going to come back with more questioning. Right now, you have Dianne Feinstein questioning Christine Ford. Somebody needs to question Dianne Feinstein and ask her why she sat on this for months and brought it up just a day or so before they were supposed to vote last week. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm David Knight. We're going to be rejoining. We've been giving you excerpts from the live questioning. We've had Christine Ford give her statement, read her statement, and now the questioning has begun. And of course, it's very important to ask her details. She said that she first mentioned that it was Brett Kavanaugh that attacked her back, and she thinks it was 1982, but she's not sure exactly when or where, what day, what month, what city, what street, what house. She's not exactly sure. But when she was talking about this in therapy, saying that she is suffering from claustrophobia, that's what you just heard with Dianne Feinstein. She said she brought it up for the first time that it was Brett Kavanaugh. The psychiatrist's notes say that she said there were 4 boys in the bedroom, so she was in her late teens. Now she says there's 2 boys in the bedroom, and she was 15. Another inconsistency, she also told the Washington Post that she was upset when Trump won in 2016 because Kavanaugh was mentioned as a Supreme Court pick. But Kavanaugh was not added to Trump's list of possibilities until November 2017. Some of these details really do matter. She's not going to be questioned on inconsistencies or lacking details, however, by Dianne Feinstein. Dianne Feinstein needs to be questioned as to her political motives for holding this for over 2 months and releasing it a couple of days, just 2 days before the voting was supposed to take place a week ago. And so we have the hearing going on right now. We'll go back to that questioning, and then later today we will have Brett Kavanaugh will be giving his statement, and he will be cross-examined by senators as well. But let's go back to the questioning of Dr. Christine Ford.
Leading up to that,
Yes.
Let me ask just a few questions to make sure that you've thought of everything, okay? You indicated that you were at the country
This is
club
Rachel Mitchell.
swimming
She's special
that
counsel
day?
for Republicans.
That's my best estimate of how this happened.
Okay. And when you say best estimate, is that based on the fact that you said you went there pretty much every day?
Mhm.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall prior to getting there? So I'm only talking about up to the gathering.
Okay.
Had you had anything to drink?
Not at all.
Were you on any sort of medication?
None.
Do you recall knowing before you went who was going to be at that gathering?
I recall that expecting that Mark Judge and Leland would be at that gathering.
Do you recall an expectation that Brett Kavanaugh would be there?
I don't recall whether or not I expected that.
Now, let's talk about the gathering up from the time you arrived till right when you went up the stairs, just that period of time, okay? What was the atmosphere like at the gathering?
Again, she said that Leland, her lifelong friend, was going to be there.
And
Leland
Mr.
said
Judge
she
were
was never at a party with Brett
extremely
Kavanaugh. She doesn't know who
inebriated.
Brett
They had
Kavanaugh
been
was.
drinking prior, and the other people at the party were not. The living
Can
room
I
was
ask you just to follow up on that? When you said it was clear that they had been drinking prior, do you mean prior to the time you had gotten there or prior to the time they had arrived?
prior to the time that they arrived. I don't recall who arrived first, though, whether it was me or them.
Okay, please continue.
Okay. So I recall that I can sketch a floor plan. I recall that it was a sparsely furnished, fairly modest living room. And it was not really a party like the news has made it sound. It was not. It was just a gathering that I assumed was going to lead to a party later on that those boys would attend, because they tended to have parties later at night than I was allowed to stay out. So it was kind of a pre-gathering.
Was it loud?
No, not in the living room.
Besides the music that you've described that was playing in the bedroom, was there any other music or television or anything like that that was adding?
No.
Okay, so there wasn't a stereo playing downstairs?
No.
Okay.
So, Senator Leahy. Dr. Ford, thank you for being here. Mr. Chairman, you know, the way to make this inquiry truly credible is to do what we've always done when new information about a nominee comes to light. To use your words this morning, if you want to reach the truth, the easy way to do that, ask the FBI.
This is Senator Patrick Leahy. Evidently, the way they're going to do this is have the Republican special counsel ask her some questions on the details, and then they will give her a certain amount of time, and then they're going to go to a Democrat senator who will be friendly to what she has to say, go back and support her. So now we're back to the Democrat support therapy. Here's Senator Leahy.
Chairman, you and I were both here 27 years ago. At that time, the Senate failed Anita Hill. I said I believed her, but I'm concerned that we're doing a lot.
Anita Hill believed Bill Clinton. She defended Bill Clinton against Juanita Broaddrick. Anita Hill defended Bill Clinton against Paula Jones. Anita Hill defended Bill Clinton against Kathleen Willey.
I know, and I hear from so many in my own state of Vermont. There are millions of victims and survivors out there who've been inspired by your courage. I am. Bravery is contagious. Indeed, that's the driving force behind the Me Too movement. And you sharing your story is going to have a lasting, positive impact on so many survivors in our country. We owe you a debt of gratitude for that, Doctor. Now, some senators have suggested you were simply mixed up about who assaulted you. An ally of Judge Kavanaugh in the White House even promoted a wild theory about a Kavanaugh lookalike. You immediately rejected that theory. as did.
And also, somebody has
innocent
given
man
two
who had been
interviews, a
called
written
to
statement
look
and a phone interview, saying that they
In
would.
fact, he sent a letter to this
So
committee
it's not just a
forcefully
theory about somebody
rejecting
it looked like. I don't know if this is the same guy or not.
asked consent
That
to
came forward with that
enter
statement.
that in the record without objection. Now,
I'm sure that at his age, Senator Leahy is
how did you
sympathetic
know
to her
Brett
problems of
Kavanaugh
memory.
and Mark Judge? And is it possible that you would mix them up with somebody else?
No, it is not. And the person that was blamed for the incident is actually the person who introduced me to them originally. So he was a member of Columbia Country Club, and I don't want to talk about him because I think it's unfair, but he is the person that introduced me to them.
But you would not mix up somebody else with Brett Kavanaugh, is that correct?
Correct.
Or Mark Judge?
Correct.
Hey,
Well,
folks.
let's
She's
go back
obviously
to
got
the
a better memory than her
What
lifelong
is
friend
the
Leyland,
strongest memory you
who
have?
Leyland Kaiser,
Strongest
who
memory
says,
of the
I never
incident.
met Brett
Something
Kavanaugh.
I don't know if I
you
can handle
told
watching
never
this, to be
partied
honest
with
with you.
Kavanaugh,
Damn
Christine
near
Ford.
broke my foot the other day when it showed it.
Indelible in the hippocampus is the laughter, the uproarious laughter between the two, and they're having fun at my expense.
Oh, you lying
You've never
snake!
forgotten that laughter. You've never forgotten them laughing at you.
They were laughing with each other.
Right. Yeah, guys that
You
are
were
gonna
the
rape
object of
you are
laughter.
gonna sit out there and laugh
I
about
was-
it. I'm sure.
Underneath one of them, while the two laughed. Two friends
I
having a
believe
really
ya.
good time with one another.
Damn. Oh,
Let me enter
let's see
into
if
the
we can make
record
some more cry. No tears, though.
a statement by the National
Oh.
Task Force to End Domestic Violence.
Need
Without
some,
objection,
need some
so
of that
ordered.
onion dip.
And a letter
onion
from
stuff
24
put up
members of
underneath
the
your
House
eyeballs there,
Representatives
Mitch.
urging
If you're concerned about
Committee
domestic
used the
violence,
NTF
don't you have
trauma
hearings
informed
about getting rid
approach
of the statute of limitations,
questioning Dr. Ford.
especially for children? But they don't do that. They
And
spend their
another
time doing this. But
160
she said it is
members of the
indelible
House
in the
asking
campus.
to delay
That is
votes have
emphatic.
been heard.
All right, we're gonna
Objection.
rejoin with the show trial over the Kavanaugh hearings. Stay with us. We'll have more juicy things that will be indelibly written on your hippocampus. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We now have the long-awaited show trial for the Democrats taking place right now, Capitol Hill, the Senate Judiciary Committee. And the way this thing is set up, they had her read her statement, Dr. Christine Ford, because she's the only one of the people of all these accusations that have come out that actually would come. And of course, she had to think about it for a while. She made these accusations back in July, wrote Dianne Feinstein. Dianne Feinstein did not release this information until a day or so before the vote was to be held. Then they said, all right, we were going to have the vote last Thursday. Can you come in and tell everybody your story on Monday? No, I can't do it on Monday. So now she is finally doing it today. But of course, Ramirez, the second person to accuse Brett Kavanaugh, said, I'm not going to talk about that. We had some new allegations come out from Avenatti. Well, that woman's credibility is certainly suspect based on her past history of allegations and having to have a restraining order put on her by her ex-boyfriend. And then we've had another very unusual occurrence last night. We had some individual who's not been named yet. Some man contacted the Senate Judiciary Committee, gave them two separate interviews and a written statement and then a phone interview saying that he was the individual that had groped Christine Ford. Now, she is adamant that she remembers that it was Brett Kavanaugh. As a matter of fact, she said, as she was talking to Senator Leahy, that it is indelibly etched into her hippocampus. And of course, the hippocampus is believed to be the part of the brain that is responsible for short-term memory. And she appears to have a very short-term memory about a great deal of things. It keeps track of the details, many of which she has forgotten. And of course, the other people that were allegedly at this gathering, this meeting, or whatever you want to call it. She said it wasn't a party, it was a gathering. The other people, including her lifelong friend, say they weren't there. And her lifelong friend said, I was never at any party with Brett Kavanaugh. I don't know this guy. I never met the man. That's her lifelong friend, Leyland Kaiser. Before we go back to the questioning, I just want to play a quick clip for you from President Trump, who had this comment about the hearings on Fox News yesterday.
What do you make of where the Kavanaugh hearings are now? There's a new set of demands that have come out.
I think it's a very sad situation. He's an outstanding person. And frankly, Sean, to see what's going on is just very, very sad. You say, why didn't somebody call the FBI 36 years ago? I mean, you could also say, when did this all happen? What's going on? To take a man like this and besmirch. Now, with that being said, let her have her say, and let's see how it all works out. But I don't think you can delay it any longer. They've delayed it a week already.
And you've been very accommodating.
I have been accommodating. I say, let her say what she has to say, and let's see how it all comes out. But they've delayed it a week, and they have to get on with it.
All right, so that was President Ford. President Ford. No, it's Christine Ford, Dr. Ford, that we're going to go back to. That was President Trump a week ago at the rally, September the 20th. And now she is having her say, and she is having her hippocampus probed for details, cross-examination, cross-questioning at the Senate. And let's return back to that live event.
Testifying here today, terrified though you may be, the fact that you have called for an FBI investigation of this incident, the fact that you are prepared to name both Judge Kavanaugh and eyewitness Mark Judge stands in sharp contrast to the obstruction we've seen on the other side. The FBI should have investigated your charges as they did in the Anita Hill hearing, but they did not. Mark Judge should
Maybe
be
he didn't hear Joe Biden. Maybe he wasn't
lying
Joe
piece
Biden.
of shit. The FBI has no fucking jurisdiction in it.
Judge
God damn, son of a fucking
Maybe we'll go
bitches.
back and review the statements made by Joe Biden when he was talking to Clarence Thomas. He said, everybody's talking about the FBI. FBI doesn't have anything to do with this. The FBI is going to go interview him and go interview her, and then they're going to tell us what the two of them said, and they're not going to draw any conclusions. So shut up about the FBI. That was Joe Biden back in 1991. So 27 years ago, and maybe Dick Durbin doesn't remember that, but he should check his hippocampus, or maybe go back to YouTube, because it's all over YouTube. Let's go back to Dick Durbin.
Can create a seamless story, but a trauma survivor cannot be expected to remember every painful detail. That's what Senator Leahy has mentioned earlier. One question is critical. In Judge Kavanaugh's opening testimony, which we will hear after you leave, this is what he says. I never had any sexual or physical encounter of any kind with Dr. Ford. I am not questioning that Dr. Ford may have been sexually assaulted by some person in some place at some time. Last night, the Republican staff of this committee released to the media a timeline that shows that they've interviewed two people who claim they were the ones who actually assaulted you. I'm asking you to address this new defense of mistaken identity directly. Dr. Ford, with what degree of certainty do you believe Brett Kavanaugh assaulted you?
100%.
100%.
Oh, 100%.
In the letter which you sent to Dr. Senator Feinstein, you wrote, I have not knowingly seen Kavanaugh since the assault. I did see Mark Judge once at the Potomac Village Safeway, where he was extremely uncomfortable in seeing me. Would you please describe that encounter at the Safeway with Mark Judge and what led you to believe he was uncomfortable?
Yes, I was going to the Potomac Village Safeway. This is the one on the corner of Falls and River Road.
Trying to take our country down. You should be arrested.
I was a
for
teenager,
fucking
so I
sedition
wanted her
and
to go
hung.
in one door and me go in the other. So I chose the wrong door, because the door I chose was the one where Mark Judge was looked like he was working there and arranging the shopping carts.
I will kill my TV.
And I said,
I'm gonna kill that bitch.
And his face was white.
Cannot handle lies
and very
like
uncomfortable saying hello back. And we had previously been friendly at the times that we saw each other over the previous 2 years, albeit not very many times, but we had always been friendly with one another.
I
wouldn't characterize him as not friendly.
Yes,
he was just
fully
nervous and not really wanting to speak with me. And he looked a little bit ill.
How long did this occur after the incident?
I would estimate 6 to 8 weeks.
Hey, Lizard, what's up, man?
Thank you, Mr.
I
Chairman.
don't know how long
Before
I
we
can
take a
handle this
break,
shit here. I'll
I
break my
can't
fucking
let
foot
what
again,
Durbin-
man. Kick my
Senator Durbin
computer.
said. By the way, he's my friend. We work on a lot of legislation
This
together.
pissed me off the other
But,
day, man. And
You
this
talked
pissed me
about
off
the obstruction
already.
from the other side.
I'll have to go
I
out and cut some
cannot
weeds and
let it
take
go
my
by
angers
what you've
out.
heard me say so many times that between July 30th and September 13th, there were 45 days. This committee could have been investigating
That's right.
this situation, and her privacy would have been protected.
go out
So
with my
something
chainsaw
happened
and
here
my,
in
my
between
machete
on your
and
side. that the
whack
whole
in the
country-
hat.
Well, not the whole country should have known
Pretend
about.
it's her.
No, not know
Ah,
about.
I
We
can have
should
some
have
fun.
investigated it. We'll take a break now for 15 minutes.
Okay, we're going to take a commercial break, and we'll be right back.
What kind of problems,
Again,
Lizard?
we're going to
Anything I can
take a
help
look at
with?
the key thing here. Is that she said there were 4 people: Brett Kavanaugh, Mark Judge, Patrick Smith, and her lifelong friend, Leland Kaiser, who says, I was never at a group meeting with any of these people. I've never met Brett Kavanaugh in my life. That's her lifelong friend saying that. We'll be right back. Stay with us. I'm David Knight. Welcome back. The Senate Judiciary Committee is taking a 15-minute break. Pretty tough for them to go more than an hour. These guys are advanced age, as we saw. So they have a great deal of sympathy for people who can't remember details. But of course, one of the things that Dr. Christine Ford said was that it was indelibly etched into her hippocampus. And so they are probing her hippocampus for more details that perhaps weren't so indelibly etched, that have to do with the credibility of her statements and the credibility of her memory. And as we heard in that very last bit of questioning, Dick Durbin directly confronted her. We've had, and I haven't seen the second statement, but apparently there are 2 men who've come forward and said that they were a part of the groping allegation, that they were the basis for this groping allegation. One individual gave an interview, and a second interview, and then a more in-depth written statement, and then the staff spoke with him via phone. And again, you might ask, why would somebody admit to a sexual assault? Well, it's because of statute of limitations. If she says that she was 15 years old at the time, then according to Maryland law, you have 7 years from the time the individual
Having
turns
a hell of
18.
a
So that would
time
be
here.
10 years.
Gotta have my bowl.
Taken off of the 35-year time differential where these statements are coming out. So it's still 25 years past the statute of limitations. And as I've said before, if they really want to do anything about protecting victims, they should be spending their time getting rid of the statute of limitations, especially for children. They did that in Australia. That is why Cardinal Pell is answering questions in Australia about child abuse there. That needs to be
Sour
done.
diesel vape, huh?
This is a show
Cool.
trial. This is something
got her.
that is shameful in the extent of how the Democrats,
It's
especially
85%,
Feinstein, have
not
manipulated
bad.
this to try to delay the hearing. I don't know if they believe these allegations, these specific allegations, or not. Again,
And
at that event, we'll
I
just
got
call it-
that.
So she said it wasn't a party. Well, it was a big
For
gathering. Well, let's just say
a
that it
grand
was
total
an
of
event or a
$40.
meeting or whatever. For the people that were there, the 4 people that were there, 3 of them were male, and so you could say,
No,
well, they're
the-
just saying that they weren't there, so they can because they might be charged with this or whatever.
not the best cut in the
but
world.
the
I
other
mean,
one, the
not the
fourth
best trim,
individual
but good smoke.
That she named and said
$40,
was her
I ain't
lifelong
arguing.
friend. Leland Kaiser said, I was never at anything remotely like that. I've never been at a party or a gathering or a meeting or whatever that Brett Kavanaugh was at. I've never met the man at all, ever. So it's her
But for
hippocampus
$40,
against
man,
her
can't
lifelong
go
friend's
wrong. Hell, I
hippocampus.
pay that for an
And we will
eighth,
get
or
back to
used
that
to.
when they come back. I just want to talk a little bit about Don Lemon and his defense of the protesters running Ted Cruz out of
Not
the
an
restaurant
ounce.
the other
An
day.
eighth of an
Here's a
ounce.
clip of Don Lemon defending the protesters.
Survivors, right, of sexual abuse. I'm one. As a person of color, I know that, especially during the civil rights movement and now, sometimes the only agency you have is to protest and to get in someone's face. You don't have any power when it comes to government or and in society. I don't like it, but it is one reason I'm not a public official, that I'm not running for office. In a way, I think it goes with the territory. I don't like that they were blocking his wife. But that's what he signed up for, and as a strict constitutionalist,
Yeah,
which Ted
mine's
Cruz is,
85.
he knows that it's protected.
What is it, 85? I
under the
forget
First
now.
Amendment. Again, I don't like it. I wouldn't want it to happen.
I moved it into my
his wife, but
what
he,
you call it,
that's
into
what
my
he signed up
glass.
for. That's part of the deal.
I don't
So
know
I
if
don't
that's
have
what he
the-
signed up for, but that may be
All the
what
things on it
the
anymore.
prices of being in public service. That
Signed up for being run out. That's what Sarah Huckabee Sanders signed up for too, right? No, the First Amendment says you have a right to peacefully assemble and to redress your grievances with people. Okay, peacefully assemble and redress your grievances. Does that include mindless bullying, harassment, and hate? And doesn't that violate Twitter's rules to do that? I mean, they did that. They put it up on Twitter. They doxed Gavin McInnes, this same group, and so forth. There was a great satire on this from Babylon Bee. Liberals unveiled their new strategy to prove that they're compassionate and caring. Screaming in restaurants. That's their new strategy for compassion and care. So screaming at people in restaurants, as they did to Ted Cruz and his wife. They were shouted at and chased from a restaurant near the Capitol in a demonstration of love and concern. And then they quote an activist, Anthony Walton. And of course, this is a satire piece. There is no Anthony Walton. But the purported Anthony Walton says, we just hate Ted Cruz so much. It was great. We hate him because of some policy or something towards gays, maybe. But no, wait, this was about Kavanaugh and how Cruz, something about that, which we're really concerned about. And because we care so much, we need to scream at him and chase him away, which is awesome. The left's previous attempts at compassion have involved such things as wearing black masks, punching people, and using mobs for intimidation, writes the Babylon Bee. Yelling at people while they're trying to eat is a newer way for them to show that they care. And they hope that it's just as effective as all those other strategies. So there you go. Now, this is not a satire. Hillary Clinton, let's go back to July. And of course, maybe Dianne Feinstein didn't really clue in Hillary Clinton either. Maybe Dianne Feinstein was hoarding this little thing till the last minute. Can't even let Hillary know because Hillary might spill the beans. But going back to July, Hillary Clinton says the Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh will bring back slavery. This is the headline from PJ Media. She said at the time, back in July, Hillary Clinton, and this is not satire, folks. Hillary Clinton said, it is a blatant attempt by this administration to shift the balance for the court for decades and to reverse decades of progress. Maybe she means progressiveness, which is not the same thing as progress, as socialism. It is statism. It is fascism. But anyway, no, this is not a blatant attempt by the administration to shift the balance of the court. This is a desperate attempt, Hillary, by the people who voted in the last election to shift the balance of power away from you and away from Washington.
I got 85
and away from that kind of intrusion into our life. And I hope that we, the people, do get that shift of power away from you. And then she went on to say,
I don't buy the real expensive stuff. I can't afford it.
I used to worry.
I'm
that the
a poor
Republicans wanted to turn the clock back to the 1950s.
But I am a connoisseur.
Now I worry they want to turn it back to the 1850s. In other words, back to slavery. But let me ask you, who was it that was in power in the 1950s? Who was it that was putting in the Jim Crow laws in the 1950s, Hillary? That would be your party. And who was it that was defending the people who attacked the civil rights marchers in Birmingham, Alabama, who burned their bus, who attacked them, who kicked them on the ground? Who was it that defended those Ku Klux Klan guys and got them away with it? Oh, that would have been Morris Dees, the guy who made a lot of money for defending the Ku Klux Klan there in Birmingham, and then set out the civil rights movement until he jumped back in to protect everybody from the then defunct, essentially, Ku Klux Klan at the end of the civil rights movement. He jumped back in with the Southern Poverty Law Center, the founder of the Southern Poverty Law Center. That's the hypocrisy of the Democrats. And of course, going back to the 1850s, it was the Democrats with slavery then as well. But that's not satire. That was Hillary Clinton. Gina Haspel is trying to recruit more foreign spies, they say, as the director of the CIA. Well, good luck with that, Gina, because Hillary Clinton is kind of put you in a bad spot. Because as part of leaving her emails available to everybody. And remember, the Chinese had put a little bit of code into her not so private server. that would send them a courtesy copy of every email that she received or sent as head of the State Department. And during her tenure as head of the State Department, and ending with the point about which she got out, December of 2012, at that point in time, she was defending herself pretty much full time against what she had done, betraying people at Benghazi. But during that other period of time, the Chinese government was rounding up all those CIA spies and executing. See, that's what happens when the CIA and the other people don't protect their own. When Hillary Clinton and other people like that get away with it, I wouldn't be a foreign spy for the CIA because they're not going to protect their information, and they're not going to protect you either. And they're not going to do anything about the people who betray you, like Hillary Clinton. Stay with us. We'll be right back. I'm David Nutt. Welcome back. We have one more segment. And of course, they've taken a recess at the questioning of Dr. Christine Ford. And there's a back and forth. The process is that they have a Republican special counsel who is questioning her on details, and she'll do that for a limited amount of time. And then they'll go to a Democrat senator who will give her aid and support and comfort. So go through this process. And we just heard Dick Durbin accusing the Republicans of obstruction. Maybe he doesn't remember the details of what happened. And before they went to break, Senator Grassley said, well, I really take exception to that. He said, I'll remind you that Feinstein had this letter from Dr. Ford for 45 days. She sat on that and then released it like 2 days before they were supposed to have the vote. Why'd they do that? There would have been ample time for us to do this and to protect her privacy and so forth. So maybe, it's become a part of this hearing, I guess, because Dr. Ford said it was indelibly that night, and those events were indelibly etched. The details were etched on her hippocampus, the area of the brain that allegedly stores details and short-term memory. But there's a lot that she can't remember in terms of detail. So maybe we should send some Brain Force Plus to Dick Durbin, help him to remember the last 45 days. Maybe he could also remember, as he began by talking about the importance of having the FBI question everybody. Maybe he could remember 1991. And everybody's got the clips up. I played the clip yesterday of Joe Biden saying at the time during the Clarence Thomas hearings that the FBI says, it's enough about the FBI. The FBI doesn't have anything to do with this. They're not going to draw a conclusion. The FBI will interview him. It'll interview her. It'll say, he said this, she said that, and they'll just present that to us. There's no conclusion to any of that. And so he said, so shut up about the FBI. But here we are, 27 years later, and Dick Durbin is still talking about it. So let's get some Brain Force Plus to Dick Durbin and to Dianne Feinstein, help remember these details, and maybe to Christine Ford, since only a few things were indelibly etched on her memory. You can get that Brain Force Plus to send to them at InfoWarsStore.com, 40% off. Also 40% off of Secret 12, our vitamin B12 formula. And for the listeners of this program, you can save 15% off of the ProPure King Gravity Feed water filter, the large one. That is a big savings. You can get that 15% off the large ProPure King water filter. Just type in the code Real News at checkout at InfoWarsStore.com. And it's very important, folks, that you support us because Real News has been shut down off of Twitter. Jack Dorsey doesn't like me talking about the fact that Obama and the Democrats won't do anything to protect women and children. As a matter of fact, their agenda is to threaten them, demanding that males, people who are physically male, be given free access to women's restrooms, to locker rooms in schools, to showers and so forth, and threatening a couple of years ago to withhold funding. I talked about that yesterday. Now I'm in jail. I'm in timeout, Real News. We can't stream it there. So if you want to see anything streamed, go to InfoWarsStore.com/Real News. And of course, if you go to watch at Infowars.com, you can see all of our shows there. Alex Jones' show, this show.
Toby got to get to work here, I think.
With Owen Schroyer and Roger Stone. You can see all those. You can watch them. Any of these shows, they stream 24/7. You can get it on video. You can get it on audio. We're going to have to
I gotta get him coffee here pretty soon. I haven't heard the toilet flush yet. I'm hoping I don't have to come to
the live hearings. They have now resumed. And let's go back to the live questioning. These are the live hearings back at the Senate.
He's in my backyard in Winnebago.
Date, and I would like to be more helpful about the date. And if I knew when Mark Judge worked at the Potomac Safeway, then I would be able to be more helpful in that way. So I'm just using memories of when I got my driver's license. I was 15 at the time, and I did not drive home from that party or to that party. And once I did have my driver's license, I liked to drive myself. So
I assume the legal driving age was 16.
So that's how she came up with it. Gotta
Now,
remember too many
you've
details.
talked about attending therapy.
Inferred. What year it was?
In your text to the Washington Post dated 7/6, so that's the very first statement we have from you. You put in there, quote, have therapy records talking about it. I want to make sure I understand that. Did you already have your therapy records at that time?
I had looked at them online to see if they existed, yes.
Okay, so this was something that was available to you via a computer, like a patient portal?
Actually, no, I was in the office of a provider.
Okay.
She helped me go through the record to locate whether I had record of this conversation that I had remembered.
Did you show a full or partial set of those marriage therapy records to the Washington Post?
I don't remember. I remember summarizing for her what they said. So I'm not quite sure if I actually gave her the record.
Okay. So it's possible that the reporter did not see these notes.
I don't know if I can't recall whether she saw them directly or if I just told her what they said.
Okay. Have you shown them to anyone else besides your counsel?
Just the counsel.
Okay. Would it be fair to say that Brett Kavanaugh's name is not listed in those notes?
His name is not listed in those notes.
Would it also be fair to say that the therapist notes that we've been talking about say that there were 4 boys in the room?
It describes the sexual assault, and it says erroneously by 4 boys. So the therapist got the content of it wrong.
And you corrected that to
The
the Washington
therapist
Post
got that
reporter,
wrong.
correct?
Correct.
Senator Whitehouse.
So
Thank you, Chairman.
she said there were, according
Thank you,
to the
Dr.
therapist's
Ford.
notes, there were 4
People are
boys.
proud of you today.
Now she says there's
from
2. According to the therapist's notes, she said this happened in her late teens. Now she says it was when she was 15. But of course, the therapist who wrote those notes down at the time of the meeting 6 years ago got it wrong. Dr. Ford, who has had to take a long time to try to remember this and has had to infer what year this even happened based on whether or not she was driving, she got those details right because they're delicately etched into her hippocampus, evidently.
Making a sincere and thorough investigative effort is such an important consolation to the victim in that circumstance, and because it's what you're obliged to do professionally.
This is Sheldon Whitehouse. He is the senator from Rhode Island who has channeled through a slew of anonymous allegations in the last 24 hours. After one of these anonymous people was exposed, he quickly recanted that statement. But Whitehouse, the guy you're hearing now, has been the conduit for a lot of anonymous allegations that people don't want to come forward. And when they get exposed, they shut down.
I might call preliminary credibility with your initial statement. You have vivid, specific, and detailed recollections, something prosecutors look for. Your recollections are consistent with known facts.
I don't think so. I gave 8
prior
circumstances
consistent
where it was
statements,
inconsistent.
something else,
and inconsistent with her
prosecutors and lawyers
witnesses.
look for.
Her lifelong
You were
best friend.
willing to and did take a lie detector test, and you were willing to testify.
And we all know
here.
that you can't fool a lie detector.
Here you are, subject to professional cross-examination by a prosecutor. So you've met any condition any prosecutor could expect to go forward, and yet there has been no sincere or thorough investigation of your claims.
Say something.
Did she ask it 45 days earlier from
And are you aware that when the FBI begins investigating, they might find corroborative evidence and they might find exculpatory evidence?
I don't know what exculpatory
Is
evidence is.
Not
check your
helpful to
hippocampus.
your recollection and version of events, helpful to the accused.
Understood, yes.
So it could go either way.
Yes.
And you were still not just willing, but insistent that the FBI should investigate your recollection and your claim.
Yes, I feel like I could be more helpful in that if that was the case in providing some of the details that maybe people are wanting to know about.
And as we know, they didn't. And I submit that never in the history of background investigations has an investigation not been pursued.
Oh, come on. Okay, cut him off. That's Sheldon Whitehouse. What a lying piece of shill he is. This is a guy who's put forth in the last 24 hours numerous anonymous investigations. When one individual's name he backed down of it. It was in the Anita Hill Clarence Thomas case, and it's all over the internet. That Joe Biden said, shut up about FBI investigations. It doesn't matter. All they're going to do is say, he said this, she said that. They have no way to prove one or the other. And here he is pretending this is something that is unprecedented in history. What a joke. Stay with us. Alex Jones is coming up. I'll be on a little bit with Alex. Stay with us.
You're listening to The Alex Jones Show.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is Thursday, September 27th, 2018. Historic testimony from Brett Kavanaugh is live right now, and we go live to Washington, D.C., where Brett Kavanaugh is telling it like it is.
One, two, then would drive every day, and I'd be in the, they'd pick me up.
What's your relationship like with him now?
He lives in the area. I see him once in a while. I haven't seen him since this thing.
Do you know Leland Ingham or Leland Kaiser?
So his opening statement has just concluded, and he is now taking questions from Congress.
Met her in high school at some point, some event. Yeah, I know her. I know of her. And again, I don't want to rule out having crossed paths with her in high school.
Similar to your statements about knowing Dr. Ford?
Correct.
Senator Feinstein.
Judge Kavanaugh, it's my understanding that you have denied the allegations by Dr. Ford, Ms. Ramirez, and Ms. Swetnick. Is that correct?
Yes.
All three of these women have asked the FBI to investigate their claims. I listened carefully to what you said. Your concern is evident and clear. And if you're very confident of your position, and you appear to be, why aren't you also asking the FBI to investigate these claims?
Senator, I'll do whatever the committee wants. I wanted a hearing the day after the allegation came up. I wanted to be here that day. Instead, 10 days passed where all this nonsense is coming out. That I'm in gangs, I'm on boats in Rhode Island, I'm in Colorado. I'm cited all over the place. And these things are printed and run breathlessly by cable news. I wanted a hearing the next day. My family's been destroyed by this, Senator. Destroyed.
And
whoever wants, whatever the committee decides, I'm all in immediately. I'm all in immediately.
And the terrible and hard part of this is when we get an allegation, we're not in a position to prove it or disprove.
This is Diane Crime Scene
Therefore, we have to
Feinstein.
depend on some outside authority for it. And it just seemed to me then when these allegations came forward that you would want the FBI to investigate those claims and clear it up once and for all.
This is
Senator,
the woman that held the
The
documents.
committee investigates. It's not for me to say how to do it, but just so you know, the FBI doesn't reach a conclusion. They would give you a couple 302s that just tell you what we said. So I'm here. I wanted to be here. I wanted to be here the next day. It's an outrage that I was not allowed to come and immediately defend my name and say, I didn't do this and give you all this evidence. I'm not even in DC on the weekends in the summer of 1982. This happened on a weekday? Well, is it when I'm not at a Blair High School for a summer league game? I'm not at Tobin's house working out? I'm not at a movie with Suzanne? You know, I wanted to be here right away.
Well, the difficult thing is that these hearings are set and set by the majority. But I'm talking about getting the evidence and having the evidence looked at. And I don't understand, you know, we hear from the witnesses, but the FBI isn't interviewing them and isn't giving us any facts. So all we have.
You're interviewing me. You're interviewing me. You're doing it, Senator. I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're doing it. That's
all right. We're skipping commercials. This is legendary stuff right now from Brett Kavanaugh.
If I understand it, is that the allegations by Dr. Ford, Ms. Ramirez, and Ms. Swetnick are wrong.
Yeah, that is emphatically what I'm saying. Emphatically. The Swetnick thing is a joke. That is a farce.
Would you like to say more about it?
No.
Okay. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Mitchell.
Dr. Ford has described you as being intoxicated at a party. Did you consume alcohol during your high school years?
Yes, we drank beer. My friends and I, the boys and girls. Yes, we drank beer. I liked beer. Still like beer. We drank beer. The drinking age, as I noted, was 18, so the seniors were legal. Senior year in high school, people were legal to drink, and we drank beer. And I said sometimes probably had too many beers, and sometimes other people had too many beers. We drank beer. We liked beer.
What do you consider to be too many beers?
I don't know. Whatever the charge says.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is the War Room Live on this Thursday, September 27, 2018, a legendary, historic day indeed. Brett Kavanaugh is giving his testimony right now, taking questions from Congress.
Does that include you?
Sure.
Have you ever passed out from drinking?
Passed out would be no, but I've gone to sleep, but I've never blacked out. That's the allegation, and that's wrong.
So let's talk about your time in high school. In high school, after drinking, did you ever wake up in a different location than you remembered passing out or going to sleep?
No.
Did you ever wake up with your clothes in a different condition or fewer clothes on than you remembered when you went to sleep or passed out?
No.
Did you ever did anyone ever tell you about something that happened in your presence that you didn't remember during a time that you had been drinking?
No. We drank beer, and so did I think the vast majority of people our age at the time. But in any event, we drank beer and still do. So whatever. Yeah.
During the time in high school when you would be drinking, did anyone ever tell you about something that you did not remember?
No.
Dr. Ford described a small gathering of people at a suburban Maryland home in the summer of 1982. She said that Mark Judge, P.J. Smith, and Leland Ingham also were present, as well as an unknown male, and that the people were drinking to varying degrees. Were you ever at a gathering that fits that description?
No, as I've said in my opening statement.
Dr. Ford described an incident where she was alone in a room with you and Mark Judge. Have you ever been alone in a room with Dr. Ford and Mark Judge?
No.
Dr. Ford described an incident where you were grinding your genitals on her. Have you ever ground or rubbed your genitals against Dr. Ford?
No.
Dr. Ford described an incident where you covered her mouth with your hand. Have you ever covered Dr. Ford's mouth with your hand?
No.
Dr. Ford described an incident where you tried to remove her clothes. Have you ever tried to remove her clothes?
No.
Referring back to the definition of sexual behavior that I have given you, have you ever at any time engaged in sexual behavior with Dr. Ford?
No.
Have you ever engaged in sexual behavior with Dr. Ford, even if it was consensual?
No.
I want to talk about your calendars. You submitted to the committee copies of the handwritten calendars that you've talked about for the months of May, June, July, and August of 1982. You have them in front of you?
I do.
Did you create these calendars in the sense of all the handwriting that's on them?
Yes.
Okay. Is it exclusively your handwriting?
Yes.
When did you make these entries?
In 1982.
Has anything been changed for those since 1982?
No.
Do these calendars represent your plans for each day, or do they document, in other words, prospectively, or do they document what actually occurred more like a diary?
They're both forward-looking and backward-looking, as you can tell by looking at them, because I cross out certain doctor's appointments that didn't happen, or one night where I was supposed to lift weights, I crossed that out because I obviously didn't make it that night. So you can see things that I didn't do crossed out in retrospect. And also when I list the specific people who I was with, that is likely backward-looking.
You explained that you kept these calendars because your father started keeping them in 1978, I believe you said.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you kept them. In other words, you wrote on them, but why did you keep them up until this time?
Well, he's kept them too since 1978. So
because of this exact thing right here.
Ms. Mitchell.
That's why I also keep calendars. Like, what kind of question is that?
I was asked for a break, so we'll take a 15-minute break.
All right. Chuck Grassley has just adjourned for recess here. Wow. All right. So a lot of stuff to get to here. Now, let me just say this before we get started, reacting to this, responding to this, and then getting back to our live coverage. I am wearing very patriotic apparel today. American flag tie, American flag lapel pin as usual. Lots of patriotic images on the scene, on the set here in studio. And with everything I saw over the course of, well, really the last month and a half dealing with Brett Kavanaugh's nomination process, and then more specifically, the allegations, false allegations attempting to be used to stop this from happening, and then listening to Ford today, who I refer to as Floozy Ford, which is now why we're banned on Twitter, because I called well, we're not sure, and I guess I just shouldn't say it. I just won't push the buck on this one. But so yeah, my coverage of this got us banned from Twitter. How convenient! And now we can't cover this live on Twitter. But I have to tell you, I was not depressed, but disheartened in the realization that we could be living in a country where Keith Ellison gets elected to the Attorney General of Minnesota when the allegations against him are not allegations. There's evidence, there's police reports, there's documents, there's eyewitnesses. I mean, it's all there, and it's all within the last 2 years. Oh, but he's going to get elected to apparently the Attorney General spot in Minnesota. No big fuss, no big deal. But then here's Brett Kavanaugh, a man with a great record, truly deserves to be on the Supreme Court. And false allegations are going to be used to destroy him and keep him from getting on the Supreme Court. So it's really disheartening when you think about that. Then you think about what happens to Tommy Robinson and how he gets put in jail. And in fact, guys, oh, you know what I was going to say? Pull up the War Room Twitter, but it's gone. So I can't even reference the tweet. But you have people getting censored right now and jailed for reporting on pedophile behavior. But you have leftists calling for violence in the streets, death threatening people. I mean, it's unbelievable. And it's really disheartening to think that that's the world that you live in, that our society, our culture has really reached that level of degradation. But then Brett Kavanaugh took the podium, took the stand today, and America took a deep breath of fresh air and said, I'm not dead yet. And when Brett Kavanaugh came out there and swore under oath and stood up for himself, didn't back down, didn't go for the political correct nature, didn't say he understood his accuser. No, he said, these allegations are false. They've always been false. This is a con job to destroy me. It has destroyed me. It's destroyed my life. They know it's fake. Why are you doing this? And so at that moment, it was a moment of hope. It was a moment of satisfaction that we're not dead yet. And that there's not just Donald Trump willing to fight these people and stand up for himself, but now we have Brett Kavanaugh, who deserves to be on the Supreme Court, standing up for himself and fighting back against the con artist Democrat Party and their false allegations and their lies and misinformation to try to manipulate this country's future. We will not have it. We will take this break. We'll come back on the other side with Brett Kavanaugh and questions from Congress. Well, Brett Kavanaugh did what he had to do, and he is now legend because of it. And he's going to come back out here in just a few minutes and address questions from Congress once again. But ladies and gentlemen, we're running commercial free today. I think we had 2 hours or maybe even 3 hours commercial free of the Alex Jones Show. David Knight stayed around on the air. We had Anthony Cumia, of course, Alex hanging around through the 4th hour. And now here live, we're going to be skipping commercials again once Kavanaugh comes back. Folks, this is all possible with your support at InfoWarsStore.com. I know you already know about the attacks that we're under, so I'm not going to patronize you in that fashion. But what I am going to tell you is that the products at InfoWarsStore.com are the real deal. Simply put, it doesn't matter whether you're going with the groundbreaking, life-changing Nascent Iodine X2. It doesn't matter if you're going with the Brain Force Plus. And we also have T-shirts and hats. And if you don't want to, pull a stunt like me, if you're not some goofball that likes the attention and wants to do a goofy dance on television, then just get a T-shirt and, wear it to work, wear it to your kid's ball game, wear it to the park, wear it to the gym. That's one thing that you can do. People always ask, what can I do? Well, we've got great T-shirts, but try the supplements because I think you're going to find that they're very effective and you will see a difference in your life. But hey, if you want to spread the word about InfoWars, and right now you can't do it on social media because they're banning us, do it in the 3D realm. Do it in the real social world. Wear the T-shirts, wear the hats, and then tell people, hey, wow, you've been saying to me how you haven't been sleeping well or you've been tired or lethargic or whatever. You need better sleep. How about Knockout at InfoWarsStore.com? This is a great product I take. It helps put me to sleep. You're saying you're tired during the day. You keep needing to take a nap. Try this Nascent Iodine for a couple weeks. It'll help your thyroid. It'll help other functions. It'll clear up your pineal gland. You'll start to get a little more energy, perhaps. Maybe your IQ goes up. It's all at InfoWarsStore.com. And just read the thousands and thousands of 5-star reviews, folks. Don't even take my word for it if you don't want to. Just read the 5-star reviews on Super Male Vitality. That's 50% off. Read 5-star reviews on Vitamin B12 Secret 12. That is 40% off right now at InfoWarsStore.com. And an exclusive offer Now, here's the key to this. You've got 3 days left, I think, 4 days maybe, with coupon code War Room to get your InfoWars tumbler. So you get $5 off your InfoWars tumbler with coupon code War Room. 4 different designs, that's 4 different logos, and 2 different sizes. So if you like the InfoWars snake and shield, if you like the hexagon logo that we feature here on the War Room, if you like the classic box Infowars.com logo, or maybe the Trump meme, mean as a Wolverine, it's all at InfoWarsStore.com, the InfoWars tumbler, $5 off with coupon code War Room, but that is only good until the end of September. So this Sunday night at midnight, that's it. You can no longer use coupon code War Room to get $5 off your InfoWars tumbler. So that's how you support us. That's how all this is possible. That's how we're able to skip commercial breaks. That's how we're able to build new studios, hire more crew, and take InfoWars to the next level, even though they're stopping us from going everywhere. And in fact, before we go to Kavanaugh, I'll also say this. One website that still hosts us is LiveLeak. Now, yesterday I came on air and was critical, not as much of LiveLeak. I did say they were degenerative content, which having a conversation with one of the co-founders of LiveLeak, he disagreed with. But I do want to correct the record on something. LiveLeak does not use PayPal. It's actually a third-party merchandise salesman that uses PayPal that sells their merchandise through LiveLeak. So I wanted to correct the record on that and also say, I don't want LiveLeak shut down. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with LiveLeak existing. I thank LiveLeak for being pro-free speech and even putting InfoWars up there, one of the few places that will allow us. So I just want to correct the record. LiveLeak itself does not use PayPal. It's a third-party merchandise salesman that sells LiveLeak t-shirts and what have you that uses PayPal. However, that does not change the purpose of what I was saying, which I hope didn't get missed, which is that PayPal will support anyone and anything. So, I mean, technically, you know, if PayPal is allowing you to make money off LiveLeak, the logo, that's still an association with the content that's on LiveLeak. All right, whether you want to debate whether it's degenerative or not, that's a whole nother issue. But my point is that it's clearly political. It's clearly racketeering. It's clearly been decided by these big tech companies to target Alex Jones and InfoWars. And anything else that they tell you is BS. Oh, hate speech this, violence that. No, it's all BS. And that was the point of the story, is that if they'll have any affiliation with LiveLeak, if they'll have any affiliation with World Star Hip Hop, which I have no problem with, I'm not saying to shut them down. They have free speech too, whatever. All I'm saying is it proves how it's clearly an attack on InfoWars and not some policy violation where they're trying to protect their consumers. So that was the purpose of that article. I do want to apologize to LiveLeak for saying that you are directly using PayPal. The record is now corrected. It is a third-party salesman that sells LiveLeak t-shirts that uses PayPal. But apparently we're on LiveLeak. I didn't even realize that we're on LiveLeak, but I guess that's where we have to go to exist now, guys. We have to go on the websites where you can get the child, beatings or whatever's on there. I don't know. I don't go on LiveLeak. So I really don't even know. I'm just going off what I'm told from people that go on there. They've seen people die in videos on there apparently too. I mean, so that's where we have to go now, though. We're now that's where we've been. We're not even allowed to be on the porn websites. Someone tries to upload an Alex Jones video on a porn website, they ban us. So there you go. So hey, look, I salute LiveLeak. I apologize. I was not trying to attack you, LiveLeak. So I just want to put that on record. And I'm glad that LiveLeak is pro free speech. I'm pro free speech. I believe LiveLeak has the right to exist. What was that, guys? Okay, so all right, we've corrected the record on that. Look, folks, we're going commercial free. Support us at InfoWarsStore.com. Kavanaugh sits down now. This is legendary stuff from Brett Kavanaugh, restoring hope to me in the West and in America and in justice today. Here is Brett Kavanaugh's testimony, taking questions from Congress on this Thursday, September 27th, 2018.
apologize.
Just building anticipation here, folks. Just building anticipation.
Senator Leahy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh,
Judge,
here we
you
go.
said before, and again today, that Mark Judge was a close friend of yours in high school. Now, Dr. Ford, as you know, has said that he was in the room when she was attacked. She also says you were, too. Unfortunately, the FBI has never interviewed him. We have not been able to have his attendance here. The chairman refuses to call him. If she's saying Mark Judge was in the room then he should be in the room here.
All right, some
today.
stations are going to commercial now. We're going commercial free at Infowars.com/show. And some of our TV affiliates, perhaps some of our radio affiliates. Some go to break now. We stay live at Infowars.com/show.
Sworn testimony of the committee. This allegation has been by members of
it hasn't been. It has not been investigated by the FBI. The committee has refused to allow it to be.
It was dropped on me. It was sprung.
It was not investigated by the FBI, and he has not been called, or he might be under.
Should have been handled in the due course, Senator, when he came in.
I would disagree with that. I've been on this committee 44 years.
It's time you agree. Get the fuck out, asshole.
FBI investigation here, folks.
This is
unreal.
And not allowed to be here to called to be testified or an FBI background. But let me
He's provided sworn testimony, and Senator, let me finish. He the allegation came in weeks ago, and nothing was done with it by the ranking member, and then it sprung on me.
Judge Kavanaugh, I've heard your line, and you say it over and over again, and I have that well in mind. But let me ask you this: the author of the book titled "Wasted: Tales of a Gen X Drunk." He references a part of Kavanaugh vomiting in someone's car during beach week and then passing out. Is that you he's talking about?
Senator, Mark Judge was...
To your knowledge, is that you that he's talking about?
I'll explain if you let me.
Proceed, please.
Mark Judge was a friend of ours in high school who developed a very serious drinking problem, an addiction problem that lasted decades and was very difficult for him to escape from. And he nearly died. And then he had leukemia as well on top of it. Now, as part of his therapy or part of his coming to grips with sobriety, he wrote a book that is a fictionalized book and an account. I think he picked out names of friends of ours to throw them in as kind of close to what for characters in the book. So you know, we can sit here.
We don't know whether that's you or not.
We can sit here and like make fun of some guy who has an addiction. I don't think that really makes is really good.
I'm trying to get a straight answer from you under oath. Are you?
You're a piece of shit.
Yes or no?
You'd have to ask him.
Well, I agree with you there, and that's why I wish that the chairman had him here under oath. Now, you talked about your yearbook. In your yearbook, you talked about drinking and sexual exploits. Did you not?
Senator, let me take a step back and explain high school. I was number one in the class. Freshman.
And I thought
no.
I thought only the Senate.
You got this up. I'm gonna talk about my high school. No. I'm gonna
let him answer.
I'm going to talk about my high school record if you're going to sit here and mock me.
We were, I think we were all very fair to Dr. Ford. Shouldn't we be just as fair to Judge Kavanaugh?
I busted my butt in academics. I always tried to do the best I could. So I recall I finished one in the class, freshman and junior year, right up at the top with Steve Clark and Eddie Ayala. We were always kind of in the mix. I played sports. I was captain of the varsity basketball team. I was wide receiver and defensive back on the football team. I ran track in the spring of '82 to try to get faster. I did my service projects at the school, which involved going to the soup kitchen downtown. Let me finish. and going to tutor intellectually disabled kids at the Rockville Library. Went to church. And yes, we got together with our friends.
Does this reflect what you are? Does this yearbook reflect your focus on academics and your respect for women? That's easy, yes or no. You don't have to filibuster the answer. Does it reflect your focus?
Warning, this broadcast contains subject matter
that might trigger
liberal snowflake. It's the War Room with Owen Schroyer.
Patrick Leahy, a Democrat,
was
questioning Brett Kavanaugh in his high school.
Made a decision to treat some of it as farce and some of it as exaggeration, some of it celebrating things that don't reflect the things that were really the central part of our school. Yes, we went to parties, though. Yes, of course, we went to parties, and the yearbook page describes that and kind of makes fun of it. And as a, you know, if we want to sit here and talk about whether a Supreme Court nomination should be based on a high school yearbook page, I think that's taken us to a new level of absurdity.
So, Ms. Mitchell. Well, we got a filibuster, but not a single answer. Ms. Mitchell.
Judge, do you still have your calendars there?
I do.
I would like you to look at the July 1st entry.
Yes.
The entry says, and I quote, "Go to Timmy's for skis with Judge, Tom, PJ, Bernie, and Squee."
Squee. It's a nickname.
Okay. To what does this refer and to whom?
So first says Tobin's House workout. So that's one of the football workouts that we would have that Dr. Finizio would run for guys on the football team during the summer. So we would be there. That's usually 6 to 8 or so, kind of till near dark. And then it looks like we went over to Timmy's. You want to know their last names too? I'm happy to do it.
If you could just identify, is Judge Mark Judge?
It is.
And is PJ Smith?
It is. So it's Tim Gaudette, Mark Judge, Tom Kane, PJ Smith, Bernie McCarthy, Chris Garrett.
Chris Garrett is Squee?
He is.
This is absurd. This man has committed zero crimes, ladies and gentlemen. This is so absurd.
Document social gatherings like house parties or gatherings
going through the ringer for nothing
in your calendar.
Just for being an American citizen, a patriot.
Yes, it certainly appears that way. That's what I was doing in the summer of 1982, and you can see that reflected on several of the entries.
If a gathering like Dr. Ford has described had occurred, would you have documented that?
Yes, because I documented everything, those kinds of events, even small get-togethers. August 7th is another good example where I documented a small get-together that summer. So, yes.
August 7th. Could you read that?
I think that's go to Becky's, Matt, Denise, Lori, Jenny.
Have you reviewed every entry that is in these calendars of May, June, July, and August of 1982?
I have.
Is there anything that could even remotely fit what we're talking about in terms of Dr. Ford's allegations?
No.
As a lawyer and a judge, we've talked about the FBI. Are you aware that this type of offense would actually be investigated by local police?
Yes. I mentioned Montgomery County Police earlier. Yes.
Okay. Are you aware that in Maryland, there is no statute of limitations that would prohibit you being charged, even if this happened in 1982?
That's my understanding.
Have you at any time been contacted by any members of local police agencies regarding this matter?
No, ma'am.
Prior to your nomination for Supreme Court, you've talked about all of the female clerks you've had and the women that you've worked with. I'm not just talking about them. I'm talking about globally. Have you ever been accused, either formally or informally, of unwanted sexual behavior?
No.
And when I say informally, I mean just a female complains. It doesn't have to be to anybody else but you.
No.
Since Dr. Ford's allegation was made public, how many times have you been interviewed by the committee?
It's been a 3 or 4. I'm trying to remember now. It's been several times. Each of these new things, absurd as they are, we get on the phone and kind of go through them.
So have you submitted 2 interviews specifically about Dr. Ford's allegation?
Yes.
And what about Deborah Ramirez's allegation that
Yes.
you waved your penis in front of her?
Yes.
What about Julie Swetnick's allegation that you repeatedly engaged in drugging and gang raping or allowing women to be gang raped?
Yes. Yes, I've been interviewed about it.
Were your answers to my questions today consistent with the answers that you gave to the committee in these various interviews?
Yes, ma'am.
So you have amount of time.
Senator Durbin. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judge Kavanaugh, earlier today, Dr. Christine Ford sat in that same chair, and under oath, she said clearly and unequivocally that she was the victim of sexual assault at your hands. She answered our questions directly, and she didn't flinch at the prospect of submitting herself to an FBI investigation of these charges. We know, and I'm sure she's been advised by her attorneys, that a person lying to the FBI can face criminal prosecution. You have clearly and unequivocally denied that you're
lying under oath.
With that statement, you must believe that there is no credible evidence or any credible witness that can prove otherwise. You started off with an impassioned statement at the beginning, and I can try to imagine what you have been through or your family's been through, and I'm sure I wouldn't get close to it. But it was an impassioned,
you wouldn't.
I'm sure I wouldn't. It's an impassioned statement. And in the course of it, you said, I welcome any kind of investigation. I quote you. I welcome any kind of investigation. I've got a suggestion for you. Right now, turn to your left in the front row to Don McGahn, counsel to President Donald Trump. Ask him to suspend this hearing and nomination process.
Fuck you!
The FBI
And there it is, folks.
Investigation.
And there is the
of the
entire
charges
purpose
made
of
by
this
Dr. Ford
right
and
there.
others, and goes to bring the witnesses forward and provides that information to this hearing.
God, they piss me
I'm
off.
sure that the chairman at that point will understand
Hang
that
that
is
son
a
of
reasonable
a
request
fucking bitch.
to finally put to rest these charges if they are false, or to prove them if they are not. You
They know
spent 2
goddamn
years
well
in
the
White
FBI
House
can't do anything.
office
They're just holding
that
this
proved
up so
judicial
we
nominees.
won't have a
You turn to the
person
FBI
seated
over
so they
and
can
over
fuck
and
us
over
on the
again for their
election.
work.
That's it.
Let's bring them in here and now. Turn to Don McGahn and tell him it's time to get this done. An FBI investigation is the only way to answer some of these questions.
So stop the clock. This committee is running this hearing, not the White House, not Don McGahn, not even you as a nominee. We are here today because Dr. Ford asked for an opportunity here. I know you did too as well. In fact, maybe even before she did. We're here because people wanted to be heard from charges that they all thought were unfair, or activities like sexual assault was unfair. So I want to assure Senator Durbin, regardless of what you say to Senator Don McGahn, we're not suspending this hearing. Proceed to answer the question, or whatever, or if the gentleman.
I'll just say this. If you, Judge Kavanaugh, turn to Don McGahn and to this committee and say, for the sake of my reputation, my family name, and to get to the bottom of the truth of this, I am not going to be an obstacle to an FBI investigation. I would hope that all the members of the committee would join me in saying, we're going to abide by your wishes and we will have that investigation.
I welcome whatever the committee wants to do because I'm telling the truth.
I want to know what you want to do.
I'm telling the truth.
I want to know what you want to do, Judge.
I'm innocent. I'm innocent of this charge.
Then you're prepared for an FBI investigation?
They don't reach conclusions. You reach the conclusions.
No,
Senator.
but they do investigate questions.
I'm
And
innocent.
you can't have it both ways, Judge. You can't say here at the beginning.
Fucking treason, son of a cocksucker!
Any kind of investigation.
Hang that motherfucker!
On me. This thing was sprung at the last minute after being held by staff. You know,
Judge,
and I
if
called for
there's no
a
truth
hearing immediately.
If there is no truth to her charges, the FBI investigation will show that. Or are you afraid that they might not?
Come on, say
The
with.
FBI does not reach. That's a phony question because the FBI doesn't reach conclusions. They just provide the 302s. With 302s, so I can explain to people who don't know what that is. They just go and do what you're doing, ask questions, and then type up a report. They don't reach the bottom line.
This morning I asked Dr. Ford. I asked her about this incident where she ran into Mark Judge at Safeway. And she said, sure, I remember, 6 or 8 weeks after this occurrence. Well, someone at the Washington Post went in and took a look at Mr. Judge's book and has been able to, the run that he wrote about his addiction and his alcoholism.
Dick Durbin, a Democrat from Illinois, cites the Washington Post.
6 or 8 weeks after the event. And he would have been working at the Safeway at that point. So the point I'm getting to is we at least can connect some dots here and get some information. Why would you resist that kind of investigation? Why would you resist that kind of investigation?
I wanted the hearing last week.
I'm asking about the FBI investigation.
The committee figures out how to act.
He's asking about a non-invest. Do you see this propaganda from Dick Durbin? This is unreal stuff right here.
Support an FBI investigation right now.
I will do whatever the committee wants to.
Do you support an anal probe from Martians? If not, what do you have to hide from Mars? What are you trying to hide from Marvin the Martian by not taking an anal probe from Martians? Excuse me, but this is how ridiculous this guy is.
I've said I wanted a hearing, and I said I was welcome anything. I'm innocent. This thing was held when it could have been presented in the ordinary way. It could have been held and handled confidentially at first, which was what Dr. Ford's wishes were, as I understand it, and wouldn't have caused this, like, destroyed my family like this effort has.
I think an FBI investigation will help all of us on both sides of the issue.
No, it'll help the Democrats stall this nomination so that the Supreme Court doesn't go conservative and pro-America. That's what this is all about. The Democrats are sick con men and con women.
If you want to know something, you got the witness right here to ask him. And secondly, if you want an FBI report, you can ask for it yourself. I've asked for FBI reports in the past, in the 38 years I've been in the Senate. Senator Graham.
Are you aware that at 9:23 on the night of July the 9th, the day you were nominated to the Supreme Court by President Trump, Senator Schumer said, 23 minutes after your nomination, I will oppose Judge Kavanaugh's nomination with everything I have. I have a bipartisan, and I hope a bipartisan majority will do the same. The stakes are simply too high for anything less. Well, if you weren't aware of it, you are now. Did you meet with Senator Dianne Feinstein on August 20th?
I did meet with Senator Feinstein.
Did you know that her staff had already recommended a lawyer to Dr. Ford?
I did not know that.
Did you know that her and her staff had this allegations for over 20 days?
I did not know that at the time.
If you wanted an FBI investigation, you could have come to us. What you want to do is destroy this guy's life, hold this seat open, and hope you win in 2020. You said that, not me. You've got nothing to apologize for. When you see Sotomayor and Kagan, tell them that Lindsay said hello, because I voted for them. I would never do to them what you've done to this guy. This is the most unethical sham since I've been in politics. And if you really wanted to know the truth, you sure as hell wouldn't have done what you've done to this guy. Are you a gang rapist?
No.
I cannot imagine what you and your family have gone through. Boy, y'all want power. God, I hope you never get it. I hope the American people can see through this sham, that you knew about it and you held it. You had no intention of protecting Dr. Ford. None. She's as much of a victim as you are. God, I hate to say it, because These have been my friends. But let me tell you, when it comes to this, you're looking for a fair process. You came to the wrong town at the wrong time, my friend. Do you consider this a job interview?
The advice and consent role is like a job.
You consider that you've been through a job interview?
I've been through a process of advice and consent under the Constitution. Which
Would you say you've been through hell?
I've been through hell and then some.
This is not a job interview.
Yeah.
This is hell.
This
is going to destroy the ability of good people to come forward because of this crap. Your high school yearbook. You have interacted with professional women all your life, not one accusation. You're supposed to be Bill Cosby when you're a junior and senior in high school. And all of a sudden you got over it. It's been my understanding that if you drug women and rape them for 2 years in high school, you probably don't stop. Here's my understanding. If you lived a good life, people would recognize it, like the American Bar Association has the gold standard. His integrity is absolutely unquestioned. He is the very circumspect in his personal conduct, harbors no biases or prejudices. He's entirely ethical, is a really decent person. He is warm, friendly, unassuming. He's the nicest person. The ABA. The one thing I can tell you, you should be proud of. Ashley, you should be proud of this. That you raised a daughter who had the good character to pray for Dr. Ford. To my Republican colleagues, if you vote no, you're legitimizing the most despicable thing I have seen in my time in politics. You want this seat? I hope you never get it. I hope you're on the Supreme Court. That's exactly where you should be. And I hope that the American people will see through this charade. And I wish you well. And I intend to vote for you. And I hope everybody who's fair-minded will.
Senator
Thank you, Lindsey Graham. Wow.
Should we let things settle a little bit after that?
No, I think the Democrats should speak right now while their knees are knocking.
No, I'm good.
Okay, go ahead.
Good. One of the reasons, Mr. Kavanaugh, that we are looking at the yearbook is that it is relatively consistent in time.
Here comes Sheldon Schadenfreude Whitehouse
here. And because it appears to be your words, is it in fact your words on your yearbook page?
We submitted things to the editors, and I believe they took them. I don't know if they changed things or not, but
you're not aware of any changes. As far as you know,
I'm not aware one way or the other. But I'm not going to sit here and contest that. Have at it if you want to go through my yearbook.
Yeah, I'm actually interested. You know, lawyers should be working off of common terms and understand the words that we're using. I think that's a pretty basic principle among lawyers. Wouldn't you agree?
It is. If you're worried about my yearbook, have at it, Senator.
Let's look at Beach Week Ralph Club biggest contributor. What does the word Ralph mean in that?
That probably refers to throwing up. I'm known to have a weak stomach, and I always have. In fact, the last time I was here, you asked me about having ketchup on spaghetti. I always have had a weak stomach.
I don't know that I asked about ketchup on spaghetti, but
you didn't. Someone did,
okay.
And this is well known. Anyone who's known me, like a lot of these people behind me, have known me my whole life. Know, I got a weak stomach, whether it's with beer or with spicy food or anything.
So the vomiting that you reference in the Ralph Club reference related to the consumption of alcohol.
Sarah, I was the top of my class academically. Busted my butt in school, captain of the varsity basketball team, got into Yale College. When I got into Yale College, got into Yale Law School, worked my tail off.
And did the word Ralph you used in your yearbook?
I already answered the question. If you're,
did it relate to alcohol?
I like
You haven't
beer.
answered that.
I like beer. I don't know if you,
Okay.
you like beer, Senator, or not. What do you like to drink?
Next one is,
Senator, what do you like to drink?
Judge, have you, I don't know if it's buffed.
Guys, this is a rout. I mean, and Lindsey Graham's had his problems, but that was the strongest thing yet. I sounded like Lindsey Graham, but I mean, they realize how dangerous this is. This is Lindsey Graham just knocks it out of the park. Lindsey Graham is the strongest, even stronger than Kavanaugh at the hearing. We got to put that clip out immediately.
Meaning it was flatulence.
I don't know what
Twitter will probably block it, saying it's hate or whatever.
Flatulence at age 16 on a yearbook page. I'm game.
You mentioned, I think, the Renata, I don't know how you pronounce that. That's a proper name of an individual, you know?
Renata.
It's spelled with an E at the end, R-E-N-A-T-E. Is that
correct?
Okay. And then after that is the word alumnius. What does the word alumnius mean in that context?
I explained that in my opening statement. She was a great friend of ours. A bunch of us went to dances with her. She hung out with us as a group. The media circus that has been generated by this thought and reported that it referred to sex. It did not. Never had any, as she herself said on the record, any kind of sexual interaction with her. And I'm sorry how that's been misinterpreted, and sorry about that, as I explained in my opening statement, because she's a good person. And to have her name dragged through this hearing is a joke and really an embarrassment.
Devil's Triangle.
Drinking game.
How's it played?
3 glasses in a triangle.
And
you ever played quarters?
No.
Okay, it's a quarters game.
Ann Doherty's.
As you can tell from my calendar, she had a party on the 4th of July in the beach in Delaware.
And there are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 F's in front of the 4th of July. What does that signify, if anything?
One of our friends, Squee, when he said the F word, starting at a young age, had kind of a wind up to the F word, kind of a, and then the word would come out. And when we were 15, we thought that was funny, and it became an inside joke for how he would say, and I won't repeat it here, for the F word.
Referring to Georgetown versus Louisville and...
You want any more on the Fs?
No, Orioles versus Red Sox. In both, you respond, who won anyway, or who won that game anyway? Should we draw any conclusion that a loss of recollection associated with alcohol was involved in you not knowing who won the games that you attended?
No. First of all, the Georgetown Louisville was watching it on TV, a party, and
that's not inconsistent with drinking and not remembering what happened.
I'm aware. And the point of both was we, in essence, were having a party and didn't pay attention to the game, even though the game was the excuse we had for getting together. I think that's very common. I don't know if you've been to a Super Bowl party, for example, Senator, and not paid attention to the game and just hung out with your friends. I don't know if you've done that or not, but that's what we were referring to in those 2 occasions.
Senator Corner. Judge, I can't think of a more embarrassing scandal for the United States Senate since the McCarthy hearings. When the comment was about the cruelty of the process toward the people involved. And the question was asked, have you no sense of decency? And I'm afraid we've lost that, at least for the time being. Do you understand you've been accused of multiple crimes?
I'm painfully aware for my family and me to read about this.
And
breathless reporting.
Of course, the sexual assault that Dr. Ford claims that you denied, then the claims of Ms. Ramirez that not even the New York Times would report because they couldn't corroborate it. And then Stormy Daniels' lawyer released a bombshell accusing you of gang rape. All of those are crimes, are they not?
They are, and I'm never going to get my reputation back. My life is totally and permanently altered.
But Judge, don't give up.
I'm not giving up.
The American people are listening to this, and they will make their decision, and I think you'll come out on the right side of that.
Well, I will always.
That's right. And they'll see people like Sheldon Whitehouse for the scum that they are. All right, we go to a break for some stations. We stay live at Infowars.com/show. It's the Kavanaugh hearings. It's epic. It's historical. It's legendary.
Self, correct?
That is correct.
So in order to vote against your nomination, we would have to conclude that you are a serial liar.
Yeah.
And you have exposed yourself to legal jeopardy in your interaction with this committee and the investigators. Isn't that correct?
That's my understanding.
You talked in your interview on with Martha McCollum the other night about a fair process. Some of my colleagues across the aisle say, well, the burden is not on the accuser because this is a job interview. The burden is on you, but you said you weren't there and it didn't happen. It's impossible for you to prove a negative. So I would just suggest that you have been accused of a crime and that a fair process under the United States Constitution and our notion of fair play means that the people who make an accusation against you have to come forward with some evidence. Isn't that part of a fair process?
Yes, sir, Senator.
And part of that means that if you're going to make an allegation, there needs to be corroboration. In other words, you're not guilty because somebody makes an accusation against you in this country. We're not a police state. We don't give the government that kind of power. We insist that those charges be proven by competent evidence. And I know we're not in a court. I've told my colleagues if we were in court, half of them would be in contempt of court. But you have been accused of a crime. And I believe fundamental notions of fair play and justice in our constitutional system require that if somebody's going to make that accusation against you, then they need to come forward with some corroboration, not just allegations. And you're right to be angry about the delays in your ability to come here and protect your good name, because in the interim, it just keeps getting worse. It's not Dr. Ford. It's this story that not even the New York Times would report, the allegation of Ms. Ramirez.
Donald J. Trump is president of the United States.
Salacious conduct. It's outrageous. And you're right to be angry. But this is your chance to tell your story. And I hope you have a chance to tell us everything you want to tell us. But the burden is not on you to disprove the allegations made. The burden under our system, when you accuse somebody of criminal conduct, is on the person making the accusation. Now, I understand this isn't a trial, like I said, but I just wanted to make sure that we understood. It's hard to reconstruct what happened 36 years ago. And I appreciate what you said about Dr. Ford, that perhaps she has had an incident at some point in her life, and you are sympathetic to that. But your reputation is on the line. And I hope people understand the gravity of the charges made against you and what a fair process looks like.
Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judge, we're talking here about decency, and you understand we have this constitutional duty to advise and consent. And for me, when this evidence came forward, I decided that I needed to look at this and I needed to find out about it.
Evidence?
And I needed to ask you questions about it, as well as others.
What evidence?
Involved. So again, I'm not going to take quite the same approach as my colleagues here and talk about Don McGahn or any of this. Why don't you just ask the president? Dr. Ford can't do this. We clearly haven't been able to do this, but just ask the president to reopen the FBI investigation.
I think the committee is you're doing the investigation. I'm here to answer your questions.
No.
And I should say one thing, Senator Klobuchar, which is I appreciate our meeting together, and I appreciate how you handled the prior hearing, and I have a lot of respect for you.
Well, thank you. All of that aside, here's the thing. You could actually just get this open so that we can talk to these witnesses and the FBI can do it instead of us. And you've come before us, but we have
The witnesses
like,
have already spoken.
our judge who
This is ridiculous.
Dr. Ford
She says evidence.
says was
There's
a
no
witness to
evidence.
this.
She says
We have this
witnesses.
polygraph.
They've already spoken. They don't believe
My
this.
colleagues
What the
raised
hell?
issues about the polygraph. We would like to have that person come before us. And I just think if we could open this up.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I guess I am. But Mark Judge has provided sworn statements saying this didn't happen and that I never did or would do.
But we would like the FBI to be able to follow up and ask him questions. You know, we talked about past nomination processes, and you talked about those. And I note that President George Bush, in the Anita Hill Justice Thomas case, he opened up the FBI investigation and let questions being asked. And I think it was helpful for people. So was his decision reasonable?
I don't know the circumstances of that. What I know, Senators,
the circumstances are that he opened up the investigation so the FBI could ask some questions.
There was actually a connection between Hill and Thomas. That's the difference. There is no connection between Kavanaugh and Ford at all. And this lady knows that.
and sports or
Okay,
summer
I'm
league
not going to ask.
basketball.
Okay, I'm not going to ask about the yearbook. So most people have done some drinking in high school and college, and many people even struggle with alcoholism and binge drinking. My own dad struggled with alcoholism most of his life, and he got in trouble for it, and there were consequences. He is still in AA at age 90, and he's sober.
Why is she saying this?
And in his words,
She's trying to attach this to Brett Kavanaugh.
That's how he got through this.
This is ridiculous.
So in your case, you have
Yeah, she's
said,
trying to pin
you
Kavanaugh as an
remember
alcoholic because her father
never
is.
drank so much that you didn't remember what happened. But yet we have heard, not under oath, but we have heard your college roommates say that you did drink frequently. These are in news reports, that you would sometimes be belligerent. Another classmate said,
This is
it's
ridiculous.
not credible for you to say you didn't
Oh
have
my
memory
gosh.
loss.
So here's this is what's coming next. Everyone get on in the internet. Everybody get on your Twitter and your YouTube and talk about what you did in high school and how you used to drink before the ball game and go to parties and do silly stuff. Oh no, we don't have any fun in high school anymore. You saw what happened to Kavanaugh.
Hearing, but just so you know, there were 3 people in a room: Dave White, Jamie Roach, and me. And it was a contentious situation where Jamie did not like Dave White. At all. And I mean, this.
Okay.
So Dave White came back from home one weekend, and Jamie Roach had moved all his furniture out into the courtyard.
Okay.
And so he walks in, and so that's your source on that. So there's some old
drinking is one thing,
and there's much more. Look at the redacted.
Notice how she goes right
portion
back
where
to
I said, I don't
messaging.
want to repeat
All right.
Alcoholic drinking.
I will. Could I just ask one more
Ridiculous.
redacted information about that.
Okay. Drinking is one thing, but the concern is about truthfulness. And in your written testimony, you said sometimes you had too many drinks. Was there ever a time when you drank so much that you couldn't remember what happened or part of what happened the night before?
So what if he has?
Happened, and I think you probably.
All right, folks, welcome back to the War Room here. Thursday, September 27, 2018, a historic testimony from Brett Kavanaugh right now. The Democrats' dirty shenanigans are really only exposing them. This is such good news, honestly, for the red wave. The Democrats are just killing themselves right now politically. This is stunning. Let's go back.
Judge, that's not happened. Is that your answer?
Yeah, and I'm curious if you have.
I have no drinking problem, Judge.
Yeah, nor do I.
Okay, thank you.
Boom.
Senator Hatch. Since
Even though
this
she admits her
FBI
father is an
thing
alcoholic.
Coming up all the time. Let's get back to basics.
Well, maybe we
First
should
of all,
investigate Ms.
anybody,
Klobuchar, see if she has some drinking problems. I mean, why not, right?
Could ask for
I'll make an allegation if I have to.
What the FBI does is gather information for the White House, then the file sent to the committee for us to make our own evaluations. We're capable of making our own determination about the accuracy of any of those allegations. The FBI has put out a statement over, now I suppose it's a month ago, clearly stating this matter is closed as far as the letter being sent to them. And there is no federal crime to investigate. if Senate Democrats hope for the FBI to draw any conclusions on this matter, I'm going to remind you what Joe Biden said. Now, I said this in my statement, but maybe people aren't listening when I say it. Maybe they won't even hear this. Joe Biden, quote, "The next person who refers to an FBI report as being worth anything obviously doesn't understand anything. The FBI explicitly does not in this or any other case reach a conclusion, period. They say, he said, she said, they said, period." So when people wave an FBI report before you or even bring it up now as something prospectively, that wasn't in his quote, understand they do not reach conclusions. They do not make recommendations. Senator Hatch.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, may I say for the record that actually we have asked, you said that nobody's asked the FBI or we could ask the FBI. I actually have, I think others have, and I think that the issue is that part of what an FBI report does is to investigate and seek either corroborating or exculpatory evidence. It's not so much the conclusion that it draws as the breadth of the evidence that is sought out through the investigation and the difference between what somebody might say to an FBI agent when they're being examined and, for instance, Mr. Judge's letter signed by his lawyer sent in. It's just a different thing. And I believe still that this is the first background investigation in the history of background investigations that hasn't been reopened when new credible derogatory information was raised about the subject, about the nominee.
Credible.
You know.
Oh, credible. Yeah.
Let the point you made
about as credible as a $3 bill in a
we have
sleeve.
tried to do.
Pardon me, but I'll just add to the point you made. The letter was sent to the FBI. The FBI sent it to the White House with a letter saying the case is closed. We're taking a break now. Senator, we're taking a break now.
All right, they're going to take a 10 to 15 minute recess. Chuck Grassley just said a short break, so we'll see. We're going commercial free today, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be right back with the Kavanaugh testimony as soon as he sits back down. I've got a whole list of notes that I want to go to here as soon as this thing concludes. Roger Stone perhaps also going to be joining us later to respond to this if he's available. And I mean, this is just crazy stuff. I would imagine, though, you know, even the average Democrat voter watching this is not having it, not buying it. That's just, I mean, what I would imagine. I mean, this is ridiculous. Sheldon Whitehouse domineering over here, asking him about drinking games in high school. Like, really, dude? Like, what do you want to come ask me about the beer Olympics next? This is ridiculous. What would happen if these people got investigated like this? What drinking games did you play? Give me a break with this crap. So now I'm telling you, the big thing now is going to be everybody reflecting on their high school days, talking about what they did. And you know what everybody's going to remember? For the most part, the crazy things they did. So we'll go back to this as soon as it's live, ladies and gentlemen. Infowarsstore.com is how we're able to support ourselves. They're obviously trying to shut us down. You're well aware of this. And we're able to operate and even grow in the face of it with Infowarsstore.com. So your support there is amazing. Big specials going right now. 40% off Brain Force Plus. That is one of the top-selling nutraceuticals at Infowarsstore.com. 40% off Secret 12 Vitamin B12. That's 40% off. 50% off Super Male Vitality. These are just some of the big specials at Infowarsstore.com right now. The last run of Survival Shield X2. This is the final run. So take advantage of Survival Shield X2 before we run out. Yeah, there it is right there. I believe it's still 25% off too on the final run offer of Survival Shield X2. Yes, 25% off. Thousands of 5-star reviews. Probably one of the highest rated supplements out there. 98% of the people that bought it gave it a positive review. It's just incredible, folks. Game-changing, life-changing, Survival Shield X2 at InfoWarsStore.com. And for listeners of the War Room, an exclusive offer for you with coupon code WARROOM, you get $5 off an InfoWars tumbler. $5 off an InfoWars tumbler with coupon code WARROOM, whether it's the 30-ounce tall tumbler or the 10-ounce short mug tumbler. It's $5 off. $5 off with coupon code WARROOM. Choose your own design. 4 different designs to choose from: the InfoWars hexagon logo, the classical box logo, the shield and snake, or the Trump mean like a Wolverine viral meme. So 4 different designs, 2 different sizes. It's the InfoWars tumbler. It's a great way to spread the word of InfoWars at work or at school. And with coupon code WARROOM, it is $5 off. But that offer will end Sunday night at the end of September. So you've got, I think, 3 or 4 days left to take advantage of that. Coupon code WARROOM, $5 off your brand new InfoWars tumbler. And tomorrow is something that we do here regularly that we haven't plugged or mentioned, but to those who listen to the War Room loyally, you know that tomorrow is the Veterans Call-In Day. So I will be hosting with Craig Sawyer for 3 hours. Craig Sawyer will be co-hosting, the Sawman, and we will be taking calls exclusively from veterans as we do the last Friday of every month. So it's the Veterans Call-In Show tomorrow, as usual. I'm looking forward to hearing from the veterans. It usually ends up being a great show. I would imagine people want to be are going to want to be calling in about these hearings today. And in fact, maybe when this is all said and done, we can take some calls in the 3rd hour. I would expect this to continue till about 5, perhaps, I think is what we're kind of expecting here. And then maybe we'll open up the phone lines. But wow. Let me just go down some of my notes here. And guys, let me know when he's back in case I'm not paying attention to my monitors. You have Dianne Feinstein and others too. This whole notion of an FBI investigation is absurd, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm glad that Chuck Grassley and others are calling that out. First of all, the FBI, they're saying, oh, the FBI would make a conclusion. No, the FBI doesn't reach the conclusion for events like this. And then they act like there's some precedent for an FBI investigation. Again, no, this would be handled by local police. There is zero precedent for an FBI investigation. If any woman came to the FBI with a sexual assault allegations from 36 years ago at a high school party, the FBI is going to laugh at them and close the door. That's ridiculous. And the Democrats know that. But when it comes to the Kavanaugh hearings, FBI, I'm Dick Durbin from Illinois. FBI investigation, yes. FBI investigation. FBI, why won't you have the investigation? We need the investigation. Will you have the investigation? Can we have the investigation? Let's do the investigation. I want the FBI investigation. There's precedent for the FBI investigation. Why didn't the FBI investigate? And it's just like, you can tell it's all messaging with these people. That's all it is. It's all messaging. Hound him with the FBI investigation. Hound him with, alcoholism and blacking out, drinking games, so try to pin him as an alcoholic and try to make up some narrative that he should be investigated by the FBI. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the War Room. Boy, yesterday we had Trump addressing the media for over an hour at the UN headquarters in New York City. Historical stuff, legendary stuff, pretty much took up most of the show. Today, we have the Kavanaugh hearings, which once again will take up the mean of the show. And once again, legendary, historic stuff. Incredible. Incredible. Let me go through some of my notes here from what we've seen so far at the Kavanaugh hearings before we go back. You'll notice how emotional Brett Kavanaugh has gotten during these hearings. He also got a little bit emotional when he was interviewed by Martha McCallum of Fox News a few nights ago. You're seeing that same emotion come out here. I do believe even we've seen tears stream down from his face. But then you notice, folks, and I didn't miss a minute of this. I saw all of Floozy Ford. Oh, excuse me, I'm not allowed to say that. I get banned from social media. I saw all of her testimony, and then I saw Kavanaugh's. And it's incredible, the difference. when Floozy Ford was talking, it was all jovial and smiles. They were even laughing like, oh, yeah, oh. Like all the emotion was manufactured. It was very like lazy, you know, and they even joked around. So that just shows you that these people are who they really are. I mean, if this was serious, they wouldn't be laughing and joking about this. They would be as impassioned and emotional as Brett Kavanaugh, but they're not because they're phonies. And then so they try to play this act off like they can use the optics to trick you into thinking that they're the good guy. You can relate to them. She's up there smiling, joking, laughing like, you know, we're just trying to do the right thing here. We're not trying to destroy anyone's life. We just think people need to know that this guy gang raped me, you know? I mean, come on. And they laugh and they're jovial and they're kind of joking at times, smiling like, you know, this is their operative. This is their operation. Okay, and then there they go. You know, Kamala Harris gets her time and the whole nine. And then what happens? Kavanaugh comes up and it's just like stern, focused, real, concentrated, impassioned, emotional, real. A total rout, if you want to compare Kavanaugh and Floozy Ford. A total rout. Done. Not even close. One shines like a star. The other, you know, sits on the upper deck of the toilet. So it was just really telling to me, seeing Kavanaugh's emotion, knowing how real it was. And I think we've all been there. I think we've all been in a moment like this where you're facing something so unfair and the weight of the world against you, and all you have is your truth. All you have is your word, which is the truth. All you have is the truth and your word to fight back at what feels like the entire world being against you. Everybody knows that feeling. Everyone's had that feeling. For a lot of people, it might have been in high school when you got in trouble and you had to visit the principal's office. So everybody can relate to that. Floozy Ford, a faker, by my estimation, a liar, a Democrat hack. And folks, you know, I don't know. I don't want to go there. I'll be perfectly honest with you. There's a lot of stuff about Blasey Ford's past and her family and relations to not only the Democrats, which has already been exposed, but also the Kavanaugh family that's really revealing. And I don't want to be the one to come out and say this, to be honest with you, because, and usually we would, but if they're not going there, I don't think there's a reason. So I don't want to touch it. I'll just leave it at that. If they're not going to go there, and when I say they, I mean like Kavanaugh's team, then there must be a reason. So I'm not going to touch it. It may come out, it may go viral, but this is such a con job. This is so fake. It's unbelievable. And how about how they get up there and they're talking about, did you drink beer in high school? So what now? So now do we all have to come on here and recount our high school experience and parties we went to, whether we should or should not have bonged that beer or played that extra game of flip cup? But you know, here's the thing to me when I'm hearing all this, because I mean, look, I'm not going to sit here and act like I was a choir boy, but I mean, it's just amazing because I remember high school, and honestly, in high school, while I was plenty popular and I went to parties, you know, pretty much saw it all, and pretty much, you know, did whatever I could that I wanted to do. It's ridiculous that we're sitting here listening to this crap. There is no one else that would say that they had a similar high school experience to what Blasey Ford is recounting, and then acting like now she's been a victim for 36 years and it's impacted her life. Let's be perfectly clear. It's like, that's what I'm saying. Do we all have to come out and recount our high school experiences just to realize how ridiculous all these accusations are and what the Democrats are trying to use them for? Do we really have to do that? Folks, if you're at a high school party and somebody gets whatever, okay? Whatever, any details you want, any form of sexual assault, multiple guys, one guy, whatever, everybody heard about it. Everybody heard about it. rumors spread like wildfire in high school. And you're telling me with the account that Floozy Ford is making that nobody else ever heard about this? Nobody ever heard the rumors? Nobody was there that could recount this? They say there was no music going downstairs. She says she was crying for help. Nobody heard her. It's ridiculous. It's BS. And whether or not the alleged events happened as she claims to recall, people still would have known. People still would have heard. There was nothing. Seriously, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, do I have to sit here and recall, like, all the incidents at high school parties that I guess you could chalk up to similar as this, that everyone found out about and that fights even went down for? I mean, see, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I remember hearing about similar stuff. You know, guys drink too much, girls drink too much. You end up in a bedroom and, you know, maybe something happens, maybe don't. If something happens, you know what happened to that dude? He got his ass kicked. So is now that what we have to do? We have to go back and try to remember everything that happened in high school? Be like, man, I remember in high school. Yeah, there was some crazy stuff. Boy, you know, I was at that party. Am I no longer allowed to work? Can I not exist? You know, I'll never be allowed. It's ridiculous. You're children, you're kids, you do stupid stuff. It happens. You're experimenting with X and Y and booze and drugs and sex and everything. Oh my gosh. Oh, but 36 years later, all of a sudden I regret it. And, that guy, maybe he was there, maybe he wasn't, but I can say for sure he was, and it has to be him, and the Democrats cannot allow him to be on the Supreme Court. And, you know, I'm so glad that Senator Lindsey Graham worded it like he did, because he nailed it. If you're that desperate for this power, if you're that desperate for this seat, it really shows how evil you are. It really shows what you're really here to do. Your lust for control. And you will use lies and manipulation and propaganda and anything you can do for that power. That's who these Democrats are, folks. These are the authoritarians. These are the tyrants. This is unheard of, and I think today is a huge victory for America.
His students love him. His colleagues love him. This man is not a monster, nor is he what has been represented here in these hearings. We're talking today about Judge Kavanaugh's conduct in high school, and even then, and as a freshman in college, I guess, as well. Serious allegations have been raised. If Judge Kavanaugh committed sexual assault, he should not serve on the Supreme Court. I think we'd all agree with that. But the circus atmosphere that has been created since my Democratic colleagues first leaked Dr. Ford's allegations to the media 2 weeks ago, after sitting on them for 6 weeks, I might add, has brought us the worst in our politics. It certainly has brought us no closer to the truth. Anonymous letters with no name and no return address are now being treated as national news. Porn star lawyers with facially implausible claims are driving the news cycle. I hate to say this, but this is worse than Robert Bork, and I didn't think it could get any worse than that. This was worse than Clarence Thomas. I didn't think it could get any worse than that. This is a national disgrace, the way you're being treated. And in the middle of it all, we have Judge Kavanaugh, a man who until 2 weeks ago was a pillar of the legal community. There's been no whisper of misconduct by him in the time he's been a judge. What we have are uncorroborated, unsubstantiated claims from his teenage years. Claims that every alleged eyewitness has either denied or failed to corroborate. I do not mean to minimize the seriousness of the claims. Yeah, they've been serious claims, but the search for truth has to involve more than bare assertions. Like Dr. Ford, Judge Kavanaugh deserves fair treatment. He was an immature high schooler. So were we all. That he wrote or said stupid things sometimes does not make him a sexual predator. I understand the desire of my colleagues to tear down this man at any cost. I do understand it. But let's at least be fair and look at the facts or the absence thereof. Guilt by association is wrong. Immaturity does not equal criminality. That Judge Kavanaugh drank in high school or college does not make him
All right, we return from break. We go back live to the Kavanaugh hearings right now. Orrin Hatch
ought to
speaking.
mean something when assessing allegations that are flatly inconsistent with the course of a person's entire adult life. With those comments, Judge, I'd just like to ask you a few questions, if I can, about how, and if you can be short in your answers, but it'd help me get through a bunch of them, about how this process has unfolded. When did you first learn of Dr. Ford's allegations against you?
It was a week ago Sunday when Washington Post story.
Isn't that amazing? Did the ranking member raise these allegations in your one-on-one meeting with her last month?
She did not.
Did the ranking member raise them at your public hearing earlier this month?
No.
Did the ranking member raise them at the closed session that followed the public hearing?
She was not there.
Did the ranking member or any of her colleagues raise them in the 1,300 written questions that were submitted to you following the hearing?
No.
When was the first time that the ranking member or her staff asked you about these allegations?
Today.
When did you first hear of Ms. Ramirez's allegations against you?
In the period since then, in the New Yorker story.
Did the ranking member or any of her colleagues or any of their staffs ask you about Ms. Ramirez's allegations before they were leaked to the press?
No.
When was the first time that the ranking member or any of her colleagues or any of their staff asked you about Ms. Ramirez's allegations?
Today.
I think it's a disgrace between
Senator Coons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judge Kavanaugh, today's hearing is about Dr. Ford's serious allegations about sexual assault. You have unequivocally denied those claims, but we're here today to assess her credibility and yours. And in our previous vigorous exchanges in the previous confirmation hearing rounds, I found that your answers, at times vigorously defended, but at other times struck me as evasive or not credible on key issues. And it's against that backdrop that I'm seeking to assess your credibility today. You said in your opening that rule of law means taking allegations seriously, and I agree with that. It brings me no joy to question you on these topics today, but I do think they're serious, and I think they are worthy of our attention. So let me, if I can, return to a line of questioning my colleague was on before, which was about whether you've ever gotten aggressive while drinking or forgotten an evening after drinking.
Those are two different questions. I've already answered the second one. This is the first. I think the answer to that is basically no. I don't know really what you mean by that.
What does that mean? Got aggressive while drinking? I got aggressive while driving. I got aggressive while brushing my teeth. I mean, this is ridiculous.
No is the basic answer, unless you're talking about something that I'm not aware of.
This is the saddest part, folks.
The reason
all of these Democrats know what this is. They all know it's fake. These are all scum.
Outside evidence, and I'll join my colleagues in saying
this is torturous interference here.
In front of us today to weigh.
This is unbelievable.
Liz Swisher, a college classmate of yours from Yale?
First, on their point about the outside evidence, all four witnesses.
Well, let me focus. I'm trying to get this question.
I know, but you made it.
Oh, he doesn't want that out there.
I just want to emphasize all four witnesses who are allegedly at the event have said it didn't happen, including Dr. Ford's longtime friend, Ms. Kaiser,
right.
who said
if Mark Judge were in front of us today to question, we'd be able to assess his credibility. But let me just get through if I can, Your Honor. Liz Swisher.
Let me just destroy you a little bit more, please. Excuse me, Mr. Kavanaugh. Quit trying to stand up for yourself. I'm Mr. Coons, the Democrat. I'm here to destroy you. So shut up.
Brett Kavanaugh drank more than a lot of people. He'd end up slurring his words, stumbling. It's not credible for him to say he's had no memory lapses in the nights he drank to excess. I know because I drank with him. How should we assess that?
She then goes on, if you kept reading, and says she actually can't point to any specific instance like that.
The quote that jumped out at me was, Brett was a sloppy drunk, and I know because I drank with him. There's also
I do not think that's a fair characterization.
This is so ridiculous.
And Chris Dudley's quoted in that article. And I would refer you to what Chris Dudley said. I spent more time with Chris Dudley in college than just about anyone. And I'd refer you to what he said.
In other reporting, as I'm sure you know, a college classmate described you as relatively shy, but said that when you drank, you could be aggressive or even belligerent. And your roommate, as I think you discussed with Senator Klobuchar, said you were frequently drunk.
Yeah, and that roommate, that was freshman year roommate.
Yes.
And there was contention between him and the third person. There were three of us in a small room. And you should look at what I said in the redacted portion of the transcript about him. And you should assess his credibility with that in mind.
Put yourself in our shoes for a moment, if you would, Judge. And I know that's asking a lot of you in this setting.
Yeah, you're right, because he's not a
But
scumbag. He's
suppose
not a
you've gone
criminal.
through
He's not a liar.
process, to select someone for an incredibly important job and a position. You had a lot of qualified candidates. And as you're finishing the hiring process, you learn of a credible allegation that, if true, would be disqualifying. Wouldn't you either take a step back and conduct a thorough investigation or move to a different candidate? And why not agree to a 1-week pause to allow the FBI to investigate all these allegations and allow you an opportunity a week from now to have the folks present in front of us for us to assess their credibility and for us to either clear your name or resolve these allegations by moving to a different nominee?
All 4 witnesses who are alleged to be at the event said it didn't happen, including Dr. Ford's longtime friend, Ms. Kaiser, who said that she didn't know me and that she does not recall ever being at a party with me, with or without Dr. Ford.
What I've struggled with, Judge Kavanaugh, is the absence of a fair, federal law enforcement-driven, nonpartisan process to question the various people who I think
Nonpartisan, it's been totally weighed
My
against him.
concern, should you move forward, is what it will do to the credibility
people
of
are
the
sick.
court and how that may well hang over your service. I understand your concern about this.
Sir, my
I wish
reputation
you would
has
join
been-
us in calling for an FBI investigation for 1 week
when
to
you
clear or confirm some of these allegations.
When you say a week delay, do you know how long the last 10 days have been for
Yeah,
us?
Probably an eternity. But in the Judge Thomas
Yeah, for us,
confirmation,
every day,
it's a 4-day delay.
every day, a lifetime. And you know, yeah, and it's been investigated, and all 4 witnesses say it didn't happen, and they've said it under penalty of felony. And I've produced my calendars, which show, you know, a lot. That's important evidence. And you act like, I mean, the last 10 days, I asked for a hearing the day after the allegation.
Before I call on Senator Lee, I want to emphasize something here that talking about doing something without enough time. We had 45 days between July 30th and September the 13th, I believe it is, when we could have been investigating this. And in regard to this candidate, if you take the average of 65 to 70 days between the time that a person is not announced by the president and the Senate votes on it, is about 65 to 70 days. And here we are at about 85 to 90 days. So there's plenty of time put in on this nomination. Senator Lee. Oh, no, wait a minute. I got one other thing I want to do. Everybody else has been putting letters in the record. I have a letter here from 65 women who knew Judge Kavanaugh between the years 79 and 83, the years he attended Georgetown Prep High School. These women wrote to the committee because they know Judge Kavanaugh and they know that the allegations raised by Dr. Ford are completely, totally inconsistent with his character. These 65 women know him through social events and church. Many have remained close friends with him. Here's what they say, partly quoting the letter. Quote, through the more than 35 years we've known him, Brett has stood out for his friendship, character, and integrity. He has always treated women with decency and respect. That was true in high school, and it remains true to this day. In closing, they wrote, Judge Kavanaugh, quote, has always been a good person. So without objection, I put it in the record. Senator Lee.
Judge Kavanaugh, you've been cooperative.
All right, some of us go to break, but we stay live at Infowars.com/show.
The FBI, or when it conducts an investigation. You are a nominee. You're not tasked with the job of deciding who, when, whether, or how conducts an investigation.
That's correct.
But at every moment when either we or prior to the committee taking jurisdiction over it, the FBI has asked you questions, you've been attentive and you've been responsive. Isn't that right?
That's correct. Throughout my career.
I have colleagues today who have repeatedly asked for an FBI investigation. And there are some ironies in this. Ironies that ascend at least two levels. In the first place, at least one of my colleagues, at least one of them, had access to this information many, many weeks before anyone else did. Had the ability, and I believe the moral duty
they
and
all did.
obligation
They
to
all did.
report those facts to the FBI, at which point they could have and would have been investigated by the FBI.
All the Democrats
And that
knew
could have
about
been handled in
this
such a way
months
that
in
they could turn
advance.
this into
It's
a
been
circus.
caught on undercover
One that has
tape.
turned
This has
your
all
life
been
upside
planned,
down, and that of
folks.
your family,
They all
and
knew.
the life of Dr. Ford and her family upside down. I consider this most unfortunate, given that this was
No.
entirely within
Don't be
the control
confused. Dr.
of
Ford
at
is no
least one of my
victim here.
Democratic colleagues to do this.
No.
The second level of irony here is that while calling repeatedly for an investigation,
If
by
anything,
the
she's a
FBI,
victim of her
an
of
investigation
herself.
over which you have no ability to control, by the way, an investigation you have no authority to call for. While calling for an investigation, we're in the middle of a conversation that involves questions to you. And so I ask my Democratic colleagues, if you have questions for Judge Kavanaugh, ask him. He's right here. If that's really what you want is the truth, ask him questions right now. If you have questions of other witnesses, then for the love of all that is holy, participate in the committee investigations that have been going on.
But that's not what they
as you
want.
have not been
This is not about
participating.
asking him questions and finding out the truth. It's about delaying this process so you can't have Kavanaugh on the court when it adjourns on Monday,
What they would do.
or when
They
it
would
takes when
participate in the
it
investigation,
comes
and when
back
you
in
have
session on
a
Monday.
committee investigation, a committee hearing with live witnesses. They would talk about that rather than something else they wish they were having in front of them. If what they want is a search for the truth, then now is their choice. If, on the other hand, what they want to do is delay this until after the election, which at least one of my colleagues on the Democratic side has acknowledged, then that might be what they would do. Finally, I want to point out that there is significant precedent from our former chairman of this committee, Chairman Joe Biden. During the Clarence Thomas hearings nearly 3 decades ago, Chairman Biden made some interesting observations about FBI reports and their role in this process. Here's what he said, quote, "The next person who refers to an FBI report as being worth anything obviously doesn't understand anything. The FBI explicitly does not, in this or any other case, reach a conclusion, period. Those are his dual periods, not mine. I continue the quote. "The reason why we cannot rely on the FBI report, you would not like it if we did, because it is inconclusive. So when people wave an FBI report before you, understand they do not reach conclusions. They do not make, as my friend points out more accurately, they do not make recommendations. In other words, the role of the FBI is to flag issues. Those issues have been flagged. Sadly, in this case, they were flagged not as they should have been, not in the timing in which they should have been. And therefore, they couldn't have been addressed in the manner that would have preserved a lot more dignity for you, for your family.